To her family, Lucia was no different than a household pet they used to keep. I mean, even a pet had it better than this defenseless girl who had no rights. If she'd only known from the start that she was just their sacrificial lamb for some ritual. They saw her as a disposable object, something you use and toss, no feelings attached. On her 18th birthday, her own sister betrayed her, throwing her into the abyss to die in the dark. She never wanted this, but deep in her heart, she prayed they'd suffer. How could she forgive the ones who hurt and betrayed her just to keep their own peace? There, in the depths of the darkness, Lucia is visited by a God of Malice. So she makes a deal with the divine to escape her fate. The contract promised him the power to exact vengeance, and that hit the right note. No one dared mess with the most powerful magical aristocracy in the empire. The family blessing, the magic of the Rodbells, was every sorcerer's dream and envy. Their influence stretched so high, it was unreachable as the sky itself. Cold-blooded head of the family, leading the house to glory and wealth, Duke Ebisu Rodbell. Youngest swordmaster and heir to the family, Ebisu Rodbell. The Rodbells' youngest son, Vancis Rodbell, leads the most powerful magical knight order. And their golden child, Lucia Rodbell, adored for her charm and magical talent. They were her dream, her deepest wish. But Lucia Rodbell, the family's bastard, was nothing like them. Mockery and scorn, those cold stares. They hunted her, but she stayed silent. Because she had a dream to get her through the pain. She held on, hoping they'd finally see her. Lucia had no idea how grateful the family head was to have her around. After 11 years, she finally heard the words she longed for. Her father's kind voice, his smile. Everything she'd ever dreamed of, finally hers, but she couldn't fathom why it happened now. Out of all times, Vancis wanted to cut the waiting and end this fast. The last time he'd ever see his brother's face was today. When the older brother heard the nerve, he snapped at him to keep it in check. Even though Ebisu thought he was right, time was definitely being wasted. Either way, it was time for Lucy to fulfill her duty. The Rodbell brothers would stay true to themselves till the bitter end. They told their sister to jump into the abyss and die, and did it so calmly. The abyss, specifically the one called Ebisu, was a closely guarded family secret. Centuries ago, the first Rodbell sealed away a vengeful god inside Ebisu. There he gained the power that gave the Rodbell family their strength and fame. But every 100 years, the Rodbells had to sacrifice one of their own blood. She couldn't believe how coldly consistent they were. So all her efforts really meant nothing. She knew for sure her father wanted the same thing. Lord Ego did this to preserve the Rodbells' glory. He was sure her noble sacrifice would give purpose to her otherwise meaningless existence. But if this was such an honor, Lucy offered to sacrifice her father's favorite pets instead. She wanted to give up Mirakel instead of herself. The clan leader couldn't take those words and slapped her hard across the face. No one dared say her name while he was around. The family showed Lucia mercy, even though they saw her as trash. The horrifying truth? She was their daughter too. If they'd ever stopped to think about her, they never would have done this. But cruel Ego never saw her as his own. To her father, she was a stain, a mistake he'd tolerated for just one day. He was certain only her death would save the Rodbell family. The heroine hated that they wanted to use even her death, but escaping was impossible. She had no magic at all. Miracle showed up at the sacrifice ritual looking for her dad and brothers. Her father never saw her coming. Her health was terrible. Miracle didn't want to leave them for even a minute. Her family was brutal. Worst of all, her father never wanted to bring her to this place. While everyone was focused on Miracle, Lucia tried to escape, but some weird force kept yanking her back. She struggled, but the deep abyss was pulling her in like a black hole. No one even noticed when Miracle used her magic to shove her sister. To secure the noble Rodbell family's future, the girl said goodbye to Lucy forever. A girl whose life everyone dismissed as worthless, just wanted to belong to a family. In total darkness, Lucy collapsed into the arms of Master Avisa himself. That was one hell of a discovery for the evil god. Born in the red light district, the girl didn't even know who her parents were. Her fragile life as a 9-year-old hung by a thread, surviving on handouts. The bitter cold felt like knives slicing into her, ready to end her pitiful life. She was sure that was how it would all end. But when Lucy opened her eyes, she found herself in the warm Rodbell estate wing. No clue why they saved her. Right then, it didn't matter. She wasn't starving anymore. She had a place to escape the cold. And just that felt like a dream. When they told her she had a family, the heroine felt like she'd won the whole world. The naive belief in happiness for the bastard brought its reckoning. When a year had passed since she arrived at the estate, Vancis locked her in a room with a viper. The girl begged them to open the door, curled up in terror. The door only opened when Lucia poisoned herself and was barely holding on to life. The father said actions like that could bring trouble down on the boy. Then Lucia realized she'd never be part of their family. For some reason, she never let go of that sliver of hope. The heroine plunged into the abyss, but when she woke up, she was still alive. She still felt as if her whole body was floating. This place where the evil spirit lived was nothing like the other side. The Dark Lord noticed the skittish girl right away. Lucia finally made it to the place where gloomy darkness ruled. She knew the evil god trapped in Ebisu, but right now, his true nature didn't matter in her situation. The girl was so boring, even the god didn't want to play with her. Whether he was an evil god or the god of death, it didn't matter anymore. Either way, he came to take her life. No two ways about it. The heroine never in a million years could have guessed the god had a face that was straight out of a dream. Quiet death and peace. Lucia didn't want that anymore. Abyss's essence told her to remember the Rodbells, her family. Those scumbags who used her, lied to her, then tossed her into the abyss. The god was sure she wanted to destroy their lives with her own two hands. With his might, revenge was in reach. All the Rodbells' glory, their happiness, their home. It was all built on Lucia's sacrifice. Her family built their sandcastle, stomping her into the foundation. If she was really trying to run away through death, that was just self-deception. She knew the god wouldn't help her just for kicks. This deal was a contract with the dungeon god. He promised to help her out, if she helped him get out. His only desire was to break free from the cursed, endless dark. Lucia Rodbell was the only one who could do it. Without magic or the Rodbell family's blessing, the heroine saw herself as nothing. But according to God, she hadn't realized her strength yet. Lucia lived like an empty shell, unaware her power had been stolen. The girl couldn't believe God knew her true nature. Before uncovering who stole her power, she had to face the Rodbell family. Her real buried hatred she tried to erase. Not wanting to die, she wanted them to suffer. Those who abandoned her in Ebisu and kept hurting her until the end didn't deserve forgiveness. That's why the determined girl was ready to strike a deal with God. The path she walks might be soaked in blood. Only moans and curses would echo along the way. God swore a promise sealed with a kiss, vowing they'd meet again soon. On the day Vancis locked her sister away, the girl desperately tried to escape. She begged him to open the door, but Vancis Rodbell was unmoved. He was waiting for the moment Lucia would start bawling. Poisonous Carcho was the only snake that matched his description. All of a sudden, the noise the girl was making just vanished. Vancis was furious the Rodbell girl couldn't handle the snake. When the servant entered, he realized the snake had bitten Lucia in the room. Only magicless wimps could get spooked by something like that. A weird little sack suddenly flew out of the room in front of Vancis's eyes. Something shifted inside, and next thing, a snake was flying out. The venomous beast lunged at the servant, sinking its fangs in. The terrified kid had no clue what was going on. Right then, the doors burst open and smug Lucia looked out. The girl finally stepped out of the locked room, looking relieved. But now, no one could imagine who was hiding behind that helpless kid. From that point on, everything changed for the girl. Now, Lucia knew for sure she'd gone back in time. That same servant who let a snake into her room back then is still around. Vance himself, the one who used to torment her, is exactly the same. But this time, it's the servant who lost his touch forever, not Lucia. Everything's about to change. At that moment, she finally understood what the Lord meant when he said he'd help her. Lucia's gaze had changed. She was more confident, bolder. Even the direct air was shaken by that look. Couldn't believe what was happening. Vancis was stunned, never expecting a simple girl to pull off such moves. He found her skills amusing and decided to act like he hadn't even noticed. His impulsive personality and lack of emotional control defined him. He'd put on all these flashy displays to mask his weakness. Now she finally got why she'd feared Vance so much, and why he'd seemed so terrifying. This time, when she looked at him, Vancis was nothing. Vancis thought the girl was out of her mind, or completely lost it. But Lucia wasn't done. She kept telling him how he wasn't nearly as smart as Estio's eldest son, and how he didn't have the kind of personality people would love in someone like Mirakel. Even if you stripped him of the Rodbell name, he was still just like Lucy. He pointed a sword at her, because someone like her just wouldn't dare say something like that. The direct heir was seen as nothing more than a pitiful worm. This kid couldn't even control his own magic properly. It was time to remind Lucy. Vancis was a completely different person. He'd never thought of himself as being like his sister. His pathetic attempts to act tough looked like a disgraceful show to the girl. Not only did the heroine see Vancis Rodbell as a fool, in this life, he was destined to become the first stone in the Master's revenge. Up until now, Sir had made one rule clear to the boy. Using magic or drawing a sword outside training was strictly forbidden. Vancis was terrified and couldn't even explain how this had happened. But the teacher also wanted answers about what was going on right now. He forced the boy to explain it in a way that made sense. As expected, Lucy knew he'd come. The main character knew exactly what kind of person Ligren Fedlin was. There's only two ways to bring down someone born to rule. Either you need to be their leader from the start, or inherit authority from someone above them. Ligren Fedlin was the second most powerful man in the Rodbell household, the head's shadow. He's the head administrator and the head's closest advisor, the only one trusted to train the direct heirs. His word was a direct order. Lucia knew spotting Van's unstable magic was a piece of cake for him. She used to shrink back the second she saw Van drop his gaze in front of him. But now, she had something else to focus on. With Ligren's nod, she was ready to take the fall for her brother. It was obvious Van's brother was too shaken up by what happened. Someone like the administrator? He saw it all and got it in one glance. Yet he didn't even bat an eye about the kid who could have died by the blade. In this situation, the only thing that mattered to him was fixing Van. Because if he let this heir's idiocy slide, it'd be a crack in the family's foundation. The hitch was just the bastard they deemed useless and incapable. There was a chance he'd defend Vancis and lie for him. Then Ligren might think this bastard was actually useful after all. Asking not to punish her brother, Lucia explained he was just trying to save her. Vancis looked confused, unsure how to react. The steward never imagined a venomous snake would take root in the house, but he still expected the young master to have something to add. When he got no response, Ligren promised to tell the head of the house everything. Deciding her name might be needed, Lucia spoke it aloud, since she was there for everything that happened. The steward did everything he could at the moment. That was enough for Lucia to stick in Ligren's memory. No matter how long it took, the heroine's revenge had begun. And she planned to see it through so the Rodbells would see it all. All night, Lucia couldn't process that it was the first time it had happened. This was the first time she'd spoken to them so loud and so straight. She'd never even dared to dream of doing this before. Yesterday, after Ligren left, Vancis was furious with his sister. He demanded Lucia explain why she'd flat out lied, but her eyes told him she wasn't about to say a word. Sure enough, Vancis was just a dumb kid with no idea what he was doing. He had no right to think she did this to help him. A real heroine wouldn't do something like this to appease an attacker. To shut down his dumb ideas, the girl said she did it for herself, because she didn't want to get dragged into his pointless mess. The heir didn't even realize how gross his fake heroics looked. It would have been nice if he'd just left his sister alone after this. But hoping for that? Total naivety. Like Estio said, she was just a convenient little toy. Nothing more. But now wasn't the time to let emotions take over. Ligren could have definitely reported about yesterday's mess. If he did, it was definitely a direct order from the Duke himself. Everything went exactly according to Lucia's plan yesterday. Just as expected, the heroine got summoned to the Duke's office. She had no idea the steward led her there. Ligren Fedlin came for her in person instead of sending some random servant. He wanted to know what the girl meant when she said that yesterday. One time was enough for him to look the other way. As expected, the steward wasn't about to let it slide. A tense situation and third-party interference. Any of that could have twisted her perception. Even the most logical choice she made back then was just the best of bad options. A regular person might not have noticed the weirdness, but Ligren caught the vibe instantly. He realized someone else had probably planned his every move. That's why he decided to step in himself, but now wasn't the time to bring it up. Right now, Lucia just needed Manager Sir to remember her name. From the outside, it looked like she did all this just so he'd remember her. If she were just a common servant, she wouldn't have dared to lie. If Ligren hadn't recognized her, she'd just accept it. But little Rodbell was the head of the household's child. And if her foolishness shamed her father's name, she couldn't forgive that. Let them hate her. Let them deny her. Lucia's still part of the Rodbell house. Ligren got her, but he said she was wrong. Even the pride she used to say it. Like she had the right to say it out loud. He said in this house, even showing your own will needs permission. This place has an owner, and it's the clan head. There's a special spell on the door. You can't just walk in. Only a few can cross that threshold. Ligren and the head's kids. Even mentioning the head's blood without his say-so is an insult. Right now, the girl didn't have the authority or power to do this. So the administrator used force to blast through the portal with her. The mark engraved on her hand would vanish in an hour. Lucia could treat this as a temporary window of opportunity. The girl had to prove his efforts in her weren't in vain. Emotional emptiness. No other word fit Lucia better than that. For the first time in her life, she had someone she could actually call by that word. That's why she couldn't reject the title of father, even if all she got in return was scorn and being ignored. Now, the heroine understood how foolish she'd been back then. By his lordship's orders, the girl finally met him face to face. According to Ligren's report, the ruler had heard about the commotion yesterday. There was no reason for such nonsense to become a topic of gossip. The man was exactly as Lucia remembered him, even if a snake had nearly killed her, or if Vancis had almost caused a tragedy. For him, preserving the Rodbell's honor came first. That's how he leads the family, cold and unfeeling. No one would listen to an 11-year-old bastard kid's screams. He still dragged her in for a warning himself, knowing that, just to tear out even a hint of rebellion before it grew. Lucia knew exactly how he thought. This was all a cruel game of false hope. A man as cold and ruthless as him wouldn't exile her, even if he saw her as a disgrace. That meant there was a specific reason for it. Lucia thought maybe it was his love for her mom. She thought perhaps, in some part of his heart, she was still his daughter. That was a hopeless and foolish illusion, and it stopped the heroine from ever letting go completely. It turned out to be part of his long-term plan to leave her emotionally empty. If she tried to run or kill herself, the whole thing would fall apart. That's why the father set conditions where she could and had to endure. Lucia was at fault for causing him unnecessary trouble. In that case, the king sent her out. He got what he wanted by exiling the girl, and now it was her turn. Everything was for one single moment. The girl had one request to make of His Majesty. Ego decided Lucia was being defiant today, and he'd already spent enough time on her. Unexpectedly, the girl asked him to disown her as his daughter. The head of the family's gaze turned blank, like he hadn't heard right. Ego thought the girl didn't even know what that meant. Lucia came to this decision after a lot of thinking since she joined this household. She got an unexpected reaction from the Duke. The plan worked. Of course, that definitely wasn't part of his plans. Ego knows what role Lucia played in reviving the Rodbell family. The heroine was a girl with crimson eyes and immense value. Her importance can't be replaced by anything because she's Lucia Rodbell. It's long past time for her to rearrange the pieces. Ligren was very satisfied with her conversation with Duke Ego. Thanks to the managing staff's care, Lady Lucia managed to pull it off. She caught the look in his eyes. That he wanted to say something. The managing staff didn't need to do it. He probably already realized what the result of his efforts would be. He believed everyone had a place that fit their status, so he hoped Lucia would learn her lesson and think about where she belonged. 10 minutes ago, it looked like the Duke was wasting his time. There's no point in putting effort into something that doesn't even deserve attention. Ego made up his mind there'd be no refusal. In desperation, Lucia begged him to reconsider, but she had no right to question his decisions. The girl figured the only way to stay out of trouble was to cut ties with family, so she lashed out at her father again. Ego was about to make his decision once he heard why she chose that path. If her carefully thought-out plan was based on yesterday's mess, it was doomed to fail. Now, over something so minor, she needed to brace herself. Lucia approached him with a request because she was the black sheep of the family. She knew it too, deep down. A real Rodbell family member is someone who carries out their duty without a single misstep, and that upholds the family's honor. That was what the heroine believed to be the true purpose of their existence. Her immaturity was just dragging the name through the mud. What's worse, her actions made others question the choice to bring her in. Her presence cast a shadow of doubt on the Duke's decision to let her stay, so the girl begged him one last time to strip her of her daughter status. As expected, there was no sense in even thinking about it. The Duke denied her plea and refused to listen to anything beyond that. In the Rodbell household, there was no room for doubt in his decision, and Lucia was part of it. Serving her duty was Lucia Rodbell's punishment. She didn't think he'd accept it, but it was still a major roadblock. The only way to change her situation there was a direct order from the Duke. She made it clear she wasn't some clingy creature begging for family love. To prove how strong her will was, she used the disownment card. If she stayed just a half-breed bastard, she'd never shake the Rodbell family's foundation. So before the Rodbell worthiness exam began, she had to get ready. Though she realized she'd really overstepped, she knew the Duke wouldn't abandon her. But pushing back was dangerous. There were endless ways to keep her here until the sacrifice day. If Lucia was alive, she could fulfill her role. But to her father, it was a last resort. He was no fool. He scribbled escape contingency plans in his notebook just in case. He wouldn't leave even a sliver of chance that Lucia might lose control. There was a curse placed on anyone who inherited the Rodbell bloodline. Anyone born turning accomplishments into entertainment was said to carry Rodbell blood. Those born with raw Rodbell power always faced eventual side effects. They'd pay for it with death, black as the void itself, the opposite of their brilliance. No one could tell what actually triggered the breakdown. If someone lost control and no one acted fast, they'd die for sure. If Lucia snapped, she'd have to pick a victim from her own family. Her first move was finding a way to lift the curse sealed on the evil god. He gave her a shot at revenge, and she had to do his bidding in return. That meant heading to the library, where all this world's truths were stored. Legends say the first Rodbell patriarch built it. He was a total book nerd. Every generation after followed his lead, pouring blood and sweat into the place. Of course, entry was restricted to a select few. Today, the heroine had the keys to walk those halls. Inside, a librarian named Giles greeted the girl, ready to help if she needed directions. But Lucia said she had her own business in that library. The S'more family, who served the Rodbells, took special pride in holding their position in the library. Especially Giles S'more, a man with excessive pride who held the Rodbells in higher regard than his own life. He insisted this place was open only to those personally permitted by his lordship. Even though Lucy's blood ran through the family line, she had no place there. That was strange, since her father himself had given her the Rodbell name, and the librarian didn't have the authority to banish the girl. Otherwise, she might see it as defying the head of the family's will. Because Vancis drew his sword over such a petty matter, the father called him in. It wasn't worth his station, since the boy wasn't even the direct heir yet. The father scolded Vancis over some cheap trinket. He was going to sort that girl out once and for all. Librarian S'more was desperate to explain himself to Lady Lucy, claiming he'd never dare go against the Duke's will. What just happened? S'more tried to explain as a minor misunderstanding. The girl promised not to tell the Duke about what happened. She promised not to put him in an awkward position in front of the Rodbell family. Knowing this guy and how fast he changes, she found this pathetic spectacle amusing. She knew it was better to set clear boundaries for the Rodbell family name up front. After all, he'd stooped to any level to keep control of the library. She had a lot more searching to do here, and there was no way she was letting him get in the way. After clearing up the misunderstanding, the girl told the librarian to get back to his work. The Rodbell household was still in a frenzy, and Vancis still couldn't find Lucia. Trying to figure out where she could be and losing his temper, he went over every possible scenario. Walking up the stairs, he overheard the conversation between Manager Ligren and Jai S'more. The conversation was about some ominous girl who had sneaked into the Rodbell library. Ligren advised to ignore her visits, but be careful with their words, because starting today, his lordship issued a new decree regarding Lady Lucia. From now on, she'll be moved to the guest quarters, and the staff must treat her with respect. Scared by these changes, Jai S'more couldn't figure out what was going on. His fear was understandable. Until recently, they treated her no better than a servant. Watching all this, Ligren fully understood Jaisi's feelings. Before, she seemed like a foolish, pitiful kid. But now everything's changed. As a Rodbell, the lady tried to figure out on her own what it meant to be a true Rodbell. Lady Rodbell scanned everything around as much as she could, but she didn't find what she was looking for. Among all the books, there wasn't a single shelf related to the evil god. Asking Giles for help wasn't an option. It was too dangerous if the Duke found out. She had to make do with the fact that Giles had left. Thanks to that, she found the very restricted library section she'd heard about. It was a room for those who'd passed the direct heirs trial and the initiation ritual. Back then, they wouldn't even let her dream about this trial. The trial itself was deadly dangerous, but she decided to see it through to the end. Even though the path was long, while the mark was still active, she needed to explore this place as much as possible. She scoured the library while she had the chance to use it so freely. Her joy didn't last long. Vance burst into the library, threatening to give her a proper lesson. He grabbed her wrist, but Lucia begged him to let go and stop wasting precious time on nonsense. Vancis expected a totally different reaction. He was ready to show her who was in charge. Play the noble heir, show her mercy and superiority. Lucia reminded him of yesterday's mess and the punishment for his reckless stunt. She warned that if Manager Legrine found out, he'd never let it slide again. Vancis had nothing left to say. Lucia was out the door in a flash. For a second, he thought she actually cared about him getting in trouble. He had no idea what she was thinking. Maybe she wanted him punished. Afraid he looked like a total fool, he sprinted after her. He lost control, clenched his fists, and swung at her in a rage. They looked up, and books were flying at them from above. It all happened so fast. Vance was on the floor, replaying his humiliation. He wasn't even hurt, which was impossible. Books had been coming at him. Lucia was bleeding, taking every hit meant for him. He couldn't believe his eyes. All he wanted was to prove who was in charge. Everything didn't end so tragically. Her injuries weren't serious, and they called a doctor for the girl. After examining the girl, the doctor insisted she needed proper meals and medicinal broths. From now on, she was assigned a personal maid named Marin. She's now been appointed as the lady's guide and will be her support. Starting today, Lucia will be staying in the guest room on the 3rd floor. His Highness made sure the girl got the most beautiful room available. The head chef prepared gourmet dishes, and here she was, invited to the dining table. Her table was loaded with different dishes. She was pleasantly surprised. Before she fell into the abyss, she was surviving on scraps and stale bread. She couldn't even dream of indulging in the luxury of flavor. After she lost her sense of taste, food became a means of survival for her. Lucia savored the delicious food, relishing its amazing taste. She experienced the taste of real food for the first time, and it was truly delicious. The empty plate said it all. This was the most delicious food she'd ever tasted. After the meal, Marin went to fetch some broth, while Lady stayed behind, lost in thought. The good food, Marin's kindness, it all dragged her mind back to the past. She remembered the person who'd helped her survive back then. The only person in the Rodbell household who'd stood by her side. The one Lucia had longed to see again. Without a second thought, she headed straight for the Rodbell family's top training arena. That's where the magical knights trained. Specifically, the first knightly magic unit. With the Rodbell Order, strongest on the continent, this arena was their special unit's turf. For a regular kid, getting here deep in the Rodbell estate was next to impossible. But for Lucia, it wasn't hard. She'd been here plenty of times before. The first unit's warriors moved with raw power and unwavering confidence. That was the real Rodbell magic knight arts. They imbue their weapons with magic through a binding oath and master it. Even a regular soldier was a master of the art and could rival the commanders themselves. She knew the place was super dangerous, had to stay sharp. A powerful young man appeared before her. He saw her fear and calmed her down. The place was chaotic and dangerous, with weapons flashing everywhere. The young man asked the girl to wait in a safe spot. After the fight ended, he approached her. He was Regresed, commander of the 1st Magical Knight Squad. During the duel, the fighter overdid it and caused a magic surge. His superiors scolded him, hen, for that recklessness and negligence with magic. Lucia noticed that hadn't changed at all, still the same as before. The fighters never expected a child to show up on the arena. That was a critical situation. The 1st squad's job is to fight monsters. No room for even a second of slack. The commander was strict, but behind that sternness was a man with a kind heart. Ian asked the young lady how she ended up in this terrible place, though he knew without explanation that she should blame her parents in this case. He told the girl to go inside. This place wasn't safe. While they searched for her parents, Lucia agreed to wait in the waiting room. Ian immediately sent his adjutant to find her parents. Their meeting was awkward. The knight didn't have anything to offer her. Only men trained there. They hadn't stocked up much. No big deal. Lady had been drinking green tea all the time. She was clearly way more mature than her years. Ian figured calling her a little lady just felt awkward now. Everything out there felt scary. But with Lucy around, she could finally relax. In the Rodbell family lands, there's no safer place than this. Sir Rixus might look tough, but he's got the strength to back it up. Every word he spoke, full of care and concern, was so warm it nearly made her cry. Because that's who he was. She couldn't let herself do it. Commander of the 1st Knight Company, Regresed, knew exactly who that girl was. Now she wanted to know why he'd been hiding it from her. Arrogant Sir thought he was pulling off the act well enough. But he still slipped up. Come on! In the Rodbell estates, everyone knew about Lucy. He wasn't trying to trick her out of spite. Ian's anger at the family's recklessness and coldness boiled over, even if he didn't notice it himself. To him, she was just a kid who needed protection, period. He couldn't stop thinking about how Lucy was forced to live, especially after she nearly got hurt today. Sir knew he'd crossed a line. At least she could get some rest there, he thought. But no excuse. He lied, and that was wrong. Commander Ian sincerely apologized to the bastard. If anyone else had done it, she'd think it was just another lie. But Ian, a good-hearted man, had always been honest with her. Their first meeting in another life was when he had no stake in her. Commander found her bruised and hiding in the corner of the training yard. She was broken then, but he didn't ask any questions. He just told her if she had nowhere else to go, she could come there. The heroine didn't believe he'd wait for her always. But when things got really tough, she remembered his words. Then, making up her mind, the girl went back there. At that moment, Ian was incredibly happy to see her again. A person with a big heart greeted Lucia with warmth. The girl accepted his apology, but wanted to offer something in return. From the commander's expression, it was clear this was unexpected. Ian was also at fault, so he decided to listen anyway. The girl's only wish was for him to become her fencing teacher. It was so strange that Sir thought he was hallucinating. He didn't expect Lady Rodbell to have a talent for scaring people. The commander felt bad, and under different circumstances would have agreed. But he still couldn't agree to this proposal. Ian never took students, and he couldn't afford to. That hard refusal from Ian was actually the wisest choice he could make. Given his personality, he could have shielded the kid the whole family looks down on. But publicly becoming a bastard's mentor is a whole different ballgame, because training from the commander directly affects the power dynamics in the inheritance battle. If Ion were just a regular knight, he'd gladly pass his skills to the girl. Even if it cost him, it'd be an honor, not a burden. But the commander led the first unit. He knew someone would sink their teeth into the weakest link for the slightest mistake. He'd been through the same ruthless hunger. Envy, bitterness, and backstabbing were just shadows that always trailed power. When it came to the Rodbell's legacy, things got even uglier. Lucia knew what bugged him, but she didn't see the problem. As a bastard, she couldn't claim the inheritance or fight for the throne. 3 months of non-stop training was all she needed. The trial to become a true Rodbell was 3 months out. Lucy promised to handle most of it herself if Ion could spare a little time. But the captain wasn't taking in students and had no intention of agreeing. To convince him, the girl vowed to find Ayla's medical manuscript. If it exists, it could help cure his daughter's illness. That was the young bastard's reply to his question. They say Ayla, known as a saint, wrote down her knowledge in the manuscript before she died. It's a legendary secret text. Its existence is unconfirmed. It's said this manuscript can do anything medicine is capable of, but Ayan figured the best shot at finding it was in the Rodbell family vault. To save his daughter, he joined the Rodbell Order's night squad. He kept her existence a secret to protect his daughter from threats. First off, the captain wanted to know who pushed the girl into doing this, and who had the guts to drag his daughter into the mix. He was so mad he demanded answers until he went too far. Sir Ian Rix's explosive reaction was totally understandable, but Lucia thought he couldn't afford to lose his temper like that again. He should have stopped to think. What was he holding on for all this time? Lucia didn't want him to blow everything to pieces over one bad situation. His main job was to keep his eyes on a single goal. That lady could help him, so he had a shot at saving his daughter. Even as head of the squad, Ian hadn't been given access to the locked archive section. That place is off limits except for direct heirs. Lucia could swear on the Rodbell name. No one else knew Ian's secret. She couldn't spill everything, but she swore her silence wasn't born of malice. This time, the girl wasn't asking for anything. She just wanted to help. Commander Rixus had a choice. Two paths, two fates. Fight to the bitter end to buy time for evacuating villagers, or turn a blind eye to the coming tragedy and retreat, saving the night squad. Ian chose self-sacrifice, to save both his squad and the civilians. He held off the monsters by himself, buying precious time. Because of his courage, countless lives were saved. At that moment of victory, all he could think about was his beloved daughter, Cherie, but he couldn't save his own life. They honored his noble sacrifice with grand, solemn funerals, while his daughter Cherie, left behind and unaware, died from sickness and starvation. There was a reason Sir Ayen's final wish went unfulfilled. His grief-stricken allies needed time to recover. Plus, the nanny who cared for Cherie met with an accident. Lucia didn't think the string of accidents was normal. A man who gave everything for others met a cruel end. No matter what happened, the girl couldn't let it happen. She vowed to become the hope for Sir Ayen and his daughter. But the commander still didn't understand what was going on. Even if someone recognized his daughter, reaching the manuscript was impossible. Doubts gnawed at him. Was the woman in front of him really the lady? Everything that's happening is confusing, and Ayen never told anyone about his daughter. When it came to all this, Lady Lucia was really torn up, struggling to hold back the ache in her chest, like she might crumble to dust any second. Ayan went in to question her, and realized he was getting too old for this. All he needed was a promise from her to back up what she said. She swore she'd deliver the Ayla manuscript to him with her own hands, but he didn't need to stress if the girl failed the test, because her mentor was none other than Sir Ian Rixes, so he figured working with Lady Lucia could actually go somewhere. Before getting down to business, it made sense to hash out their differences. The commander wasn't about to ask how Lady Lucia found out his secret, and if his secret had slipped out, well, he'd made it that easy to find. Still, he had to respect Lucia's grit in going after it like she did. If she was trying to blackmail him, she wouldn't have gone this far. The girl had just told him she drank green tea without a problem, but this tea had a seriously weird taste. No matter how you look at it, Lucy still seems like just a kid to him. Stepping onto the training grounds, the girl held her breath for a heartbeat. Ahead, there was a lot in store, not just swordplay. Lucia was going to learn everything. She had to master everything required for the inheritance trial. This exam tested the heir's abilities. Passing it required more than strength. Broad knowledge was key. With Lucia's sharp mind, academics wouldn't be a problem. But Ian feared physical conditioning would be tougher. Endurance didn't build overnight. That's why the commander knew this would hit the girl hardest. Lucia had never trained with a blade, and her fitness wasn't top form, but she could push herself harder than anyone else. The girl vowed to give it her all every single day. It would be tough, but they'd just have to wait it out. The commander had no idea what the young lady was talking about. He was just sharing the problems they had to deal with. They need to figure out their weaknesses to know how to move forward. Ion had no intention of training without a plan or preparation. Lucy felt awkward because he'd have to find extra time on her account. Time was definitely one of the problems they needed to tackle. So the master offered the lady the chance to become his official student. It wasn't a temporary 3-month deal like she suggested. They had a full-fledged mentor-student relationship approved by the Duke. Soon, Ligraine Ferlin came to visit them. He apologized for arriving without prior notice. But hearing those words from the administrator was actually kind of hurtful. At that moment, Ion noticed Lucy's face change after he arrived. It was too dusty here, so he suggested moving to another location. But Ligraine asked to put off the conversation for another time. He came today just to clarify something. Young Lady Rodbell should have known better than to ignore the consequences of her actions. Her reckless actions led to some serious fallout. Marin, who had no idea where Lucia was, found herself in a tight spot, and the worker had to waste the whole day on this nonsense instead of training. First off, she was wasting the commander's precious time. Time's value wasn't the same for everyone, so Ligrin ordered them to stop causing trouble and get back to their post. Every minute's gold right now, and Lucia should have apologized. Furious, Ion suddenly snapped and told them to stop. Lady Lucia wasn't the one to blame, someone else entirely. The master was certain the steward knew exactly who they meant. From the start, it looked like the Rodbell family wouldn't lift a finger no matter what the lady did. Even the staff here acted the same way. If you think about it, the lady was just being herself, which is why they criticized her. Ion argued they weren't giving her freedom, just a gilded cage. All this is about a 9-year-old kid. The master was just trying to warn, in case someone misunderstood everything. But he was talking about the people who actually caused the problem. He hoped his words didn't offend the steward. But Lucia was still at fault since the steward came for her. She could move around freely only because the estate was safe. After promising to be more careful from now on, the girl apologized. Ian also mentioned it was a truly joyful day. Ligrin hoped the commander's decision was made for the good of the Rodbell family. Soon, Lucia was already bracing herself for scolding on the way, but it all ended way too peacefully. Even the steward found it hard to go against Ian, the key figure in the house. In another situation, Ligrin wouldn't have backed down, but today he had no choice. Arguing with Ian and trying to challenge his words would have been an admission of that fact. Allowing such a disgrace to the Duke's honor was unacceptable. Lucia thanked her escort as she reached the room's door. She promised to keep Marine updated on everything ahead of time, but the manager didn't ask what she was thinking right now. If the girl pushed further, that'd be going too far. The manager told her to live with what she had right now. If she started wanting more, she'd risk losing even what she'd worked hard to gain. Those words stuck with Lucia. They were for her own good. She didn't know if they were advice, but the tone felt off. Still, whatever it was, the girl had no intention of stopping. Everything's going according to plan so far. And more than that, luck was on her side. She was offered a formal apprenticeship. Earning that spot wasn't easy, because the hero was about to face the Rodbell family's main trial. At the Lord's command, the commander of the first magical squad arrived. Ian Rixus greeted the head of the Rodbell family. The commander planned to talk to Ego about taking a few into his personal apprenticeship. Until recently, he himself thought it had nothing to do with him. But everything changed the moment he met her. Even if her skills aren't top-notch, there's something far more important at play. Kindness, unbreakable willpower, and Lucia's sharp intuition. You don't pass up a chance to mentor a kid with those qualities. Mr. Rixes knew she'd grow into a remarkable person, so he asked to take her on as a personal student. The family head didn't expect to hear such a request, because he wouldn't have even considered it was about his own daughter. But Ion knew the head hadn't even considered it. To the Duke, people who didn't meet his standards were irrelevant. Not long ago, Ian Rixes would have done anything to become a Rodbell knight. But Lord Ego just ordered him to get lost, fast. Because to him, people like Ian were just trash by the roadside. That so-called meeting was what pushed Ian here, grinding his teeth all the way. He wasn't expecting a free pass from someone like him. If it comes down to it, he's willing to bet his commander's rank on it. But His Grace left the decision up to the commander. The fact that Ian finally spoke up shows he's 100% sure about his choice. Now he had to properly train Mirakel, Ego's daughter. The commander thought the leader would just say yes right off the bat. Turns out the Duke never saw Lucy as his daughter to begin with. But the one Ion wanted to take in as a student is Lady Lucy. Marin spent hours working on Lucy's hair before the big event. They changed outfits so many times, the girl couldn't keep track. Marin got into trouble because of Lady Lucy yesterday, but today everything was smooth sailing. As an apology, Lucy did everything Marin asked the whole morning. But a strange feeling kept tugging at her. This is just another trial she has to face. It's been a while since she was called. The protagonist was finally ready to meet her brother and the steward. Ligrin's there. Makes sense. Vancis showing up? Unexpected. All Vancis wanted to know was what trouble this half-blood had stirred up again. If the old man called her during work hours, it had to be something huge. Vancis figured she'd cracked her skull and lost her bearings. Out of nowhere, the kid's faking concern. He almost looked guilty about what happened. Oh, Rodbell wouldn't forget their place. Lucia thought Vancis had lost his grip. Otherwise, he wouldn't be shouting so much. That day marked the start of her presence really hitting the household. She'd inherited the family head's bloodline. Potential flowing through her veins, but she'd soon find out. Her burning ambition would burn her to the ground. Ligrin realized not everything was lost. Still time to ask why this place bears the Rodbell name. 10 minutes before the gathering, Ego found out Lucia was the master's apprentice. The leader didn't see Ayen as some spineless sap who just let fate push him around. Ayen, a patient man who knows how to wait, wanted what he really craved. So Ego asked if the commander had actually thought this through. It could be a hot-headed snap decision made on emotion. Ayen was like a man standing on thin ice, one wrong step away from cracking through. The thought that Lucia had been living under his icy stare all this time gnawed at him. His lordship's reminder only made the commander more determined. An unbroken duty passed down from the clan leader for generations. The commander of the Knight's Order has the right to take one heir as an apprentice in a lifetime. So the first squad leader requested permission to take Lucia as his apprentice. 10 minutes later, Vancis and Lucia stormed into the father's office. This escalated way beyond what the heroine had expected. She'd watched them long enough to read their body language like a book. Ayen's tense as a bowstring right now. The Duke's showing more emotion than anyone's ever seen from him. Ayen got a chance, but he risked way too much to get it. Her father found out Lucia Rodbell wanted to learn swordplay from the captain. Under different circumstances, she should have been punished for her boldness. But at Ayen's request, the Duke decided to give her a chance to clear things up. In a week, on the training grounds, he expected her to win a duel. And for that, of course, she'd need a worthy opponent. Vancis Rodbell, the younger son, would be Lucia's opponent. He was shocked to learn the contest would happen in a week. Fighting a girl who's never held a sword was just plain silly. That's the cost of the challenge. You can't win just by saying a word. Back when the Rodbells learned swordplay, no such test ever existed. Vancis was a fencing prodigy. No one his age could match him. Beating someone who will lead the magical knights someday? Sounds nuts. Once the fight started, he'd knock Lucia out in seconds, no doubt about it. So they took the choice away from her and let her back out of the duel with Vancis. But with one condition. If she refuses, the swordsmanship instructor won't be the commander, but any other knight. But if Lucia decides to duel Vancis, no one will stop her. If she loses, she'll never get another chance to train in swordplay here. Lady Lucia had to make a choice. If she agrees to fight, she'll lose her only shot. Because it's the Duke's trap. Whatever she picks, it'll play out exactly how he wants. The girl made her decision and accepted the duel with Vancis. Vans was furious. Her father had given her a chance, and he thought her choice was a mistake. The reason she wanted to learn swordplay, even with the chance His Highness gave her, there was Commander Rixus, who believed in her potential and put in a lot of effort for her. Now, she has to be ready to do anything. So the decision and response to His Highness were made. Lucia starts training for the duel with Vans. Meanwhile, the heir to the Arpadel Empire, Bedel Danav Arpadel, caught wind of the duel. Now the prince is dying to meet Liutia. Lady Lucia returned home. And as always, Marin was waiting with a nice lunch and her usual worrying. Over a hearty breakfast, Lady Lucia decides to spill her news to Marin. Marcin really didn't want Lucy's opponent to be young Master Vancis, but the lady made a proposal that made no sense whatsoever, so she had no choice but to accept it, because the only way to get what she wanted was to overcome this unfairness. And the best part? She's got someone who believes in her and gives her the strength and confidence. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the commander showed up at Lucy's for an important talk. Even with the risks, the commander gave her a shot at living up to everyone's expectations. She was hoping he'd walk into that talk without a doubt in his mind and give her his full trust. Over a strong cup of tea Marcin had brewed, the mentor started the conversation. She heard the one thing she never wanted from the commander. She still had hope. From his words, she realized she had no chance of defeating Lord Vancis. They were catastrophically short on prep time, and Vance had real talent. The commander told her the battle rules had changed, and if the Duke pushed his will first, the commander had the right to push back a little. The deal was set, and the Duke approved the terms. Magic use is strictly off limits. To prevent injuries, they'll cast a protective spell on the participants. Vancis Rodbella's victory condition. If the tip of his weapon touches Lucia's neck or chest. Lutia's victory condition. If her blade touches any part of Vancis Rodbella. Unfairly generous victory terms. Definitely the Duke's doing. There's a catch here. By agreeing to Ayen's overly demanding terms, he's basically piling up debt on him. And at the same time, it stops a major conflict from blowing up between the sides. Even if they give him some leeway, he's dead sure Vancis won't lose. But who knows what mess his hunger for both profit and a solid excuse will cause. And it'll probably hit that one person who's forever stuck in her memory too. This is where Ayen Rixus, commander of the First Magical Knight Order, lies. Meanwhile, Vancis, hearing about the fight with Lucia a week later, bolts straight to Jalak. He even stakes her status as an official first squad apprentice on it. Jalak already knew the duel was coming and was waiting for the kid for the same reason. He was his fencing instructor and knew everything there was to know about Vancis. Second commander of the Magical Knight Squad, Jalak Malid. Vancis couldn't figure out why Commander Ayan picked Lucy as his official apprentice instead of him. And this girl didn't even take the easy way out. No, she went and made a damn foolish choice. He had no clue what was going on, and waited for Zilak to fill him in. The teacher figured it all came down to one thing. They were both scum from the gutter. Zilak Malid didn't have a clue what they were thinking, but he had a rough idea where the Duke was coming from. What the teacher meant? Pure guesswork. Zilak tossed him the rules for the upcoming duel. Hardly a fair fight. Those rules were stacked one way. Looking at those rules, Zilak got a hunch. Lady Lucy might actually take this down. The gap between Vance and Lucy was so obvious, even the Duke saw it. But if that's true, why the hell is he blowing this out of proportion when the result's a given? One answer. This was the punishment. The old man gave the young master a key mission. Targets were those who forgot their station and reached for what wasn't theirs. And the old man wanted to see the kid crush that bastard right from the start. Vance was stressing over whether he could live up to his father's expectations for such a big responsibility. But with his teacher Zilak right there, he didn't have anything to worry about. Looks like Vance is going to have to train in more than just swordplay for a while, and how to handle commoners more effectively, even when talking about the noblest motives in martial arts. The whole point is to inflict wounds. That's why you always gotta remember that core truth. Stay alert, stay focused. Tragedies come from those who gave in to the temptation of brute force and turned into monsters. Looks like after everything she heard, the lady won't forget this lesson. Those words will be her guiding light from now on. They wrapped up the theory. Now it's time to get hands-on. To win, you gotta know what your opponent is made of, and what you're made of yourself. Training went smooth. The young lady was sharp and picked things up fast. The girl admitted she wasn't as strong or skilled as Vancis when it came to raw power and technique. They both knew their strengths, and that's exactly what gives them the edge. Those who are completely confident in their victory will inevitably show a weakness called overconfidence, and that gap will become the key to their victory. Everything boils down to turning the carelessness of these monsters into a chance to defeat them. And to seize this chance, you need thorough analysis and tough repetitions. First, you need to clearly organize the situation Lucia might face in the duel. Imagining unknown circumstances easily drags thoughts into a negative direction, and objectively thinking becomes almost impossible. You can drop the word duel and focus simply on meeting Vancis, because this is essentially a match where one precise strike is enough for victory. Breaking it down this way, the choice becomes obvious. Lady will use the spear. Now there's no better weapon for a duel. But the Duke might not have approved. Now she understands the meaning of that clause, given her victory condition. Lady was really worried, but her teacher made sure the rules weren't broken. In the Rodbell house, where martial art is revered, no weapon is favored over another. The spear, a favorite among many knights. And if they start nitpicking, the Duke himself will be in an awkward position. Turns out, having an ally gives you way more confidence than you'd expect. And if Ayan's dead set on using a spear, she's not about to argue. By evening, Lady Lucia made her way back to the Rodbell household. Marin spotted the kids' bruised, battered hands and jumped right into healing them. Dinner was laid out. The chef had prepped a solid meal, and everyone was waiting on Lucia. But the restless girl was itching to train even at midnight. Ayan was pushing for rest. Like rest is part of the grind, so no way around it. Her body was shot. Her hands needed wrapping, so pushing through wasn't happening. With her legs tied up, Lucia was mentally replaying everything she'd picked up. Ayan went with the spear first off, because it gives way more reach than a sword. If she's swinging a sword at Vancis, she's got to step into his strike zone, and that gives him the opening to take her down. But with a spear in hand, she can keep her distance and still land hits, all while staying out of his reach, defending, and keeping him at bay. Plus, Vancis hasn't faced spear fighters much, so he'll be making more mistakes. So yeah, the deal's actually solid, as long as the skill gap's not a total nightmare. After all, it was her first time handling a spear today, and it's obvious Vancis won't back down that easily. So before the duel, she has to completely master everything she picked up today. If the pain and grind of training can be her launching pad, she'll embrace it without hesitation. Lady Lucia knows she'll push through all of this for sure. She was so wiped out, she just passed out in Marin's warm arms. Marin carried Lucia to her room, and staring at the kid, all she wanted was to put a stop to this. But she couldn't do a thing, even though she ached for it with every part of her. Ayan was adamant. Lucia's care had to be top-notch. The maid was told to keep her well-fed, make sure she was comfortable, but keep her mouth shut. Sweet nothings, and that pitiful look from the maid won't do Lady Lucia any good when the fighting starts. She needed to figure out what real service to Lady Lucia was all about. She knew only someone who earned it could really help her. She had no choice but to take proper care of the girl. The next morning, the girl was out for training again. Halfway there, a downpour hit. No umbrella, and she couldn't turn back. Lucia was terrified of missing her session. Since she didn't have far to go, she just decided to run through the rain. On the way, she ran into Captain Arc Montage of the Second Order of Magi Knights. She'd known him since he was especially close to Captain Ian. About Captain Ayan, Zalak talked like a total jerk, telling Lucia that he'd secretly raised a girl. The girl was supposedly Lucia's age, and Zalak called it a disgusting obsession, then laughed about it. This is the real face of Ian Rixes. Everyone revered, Lucia thought. Zalak couldn't even express his joy that Ian was dead. Those words, and the way he mocked the dead and laughed at his death, really made her furious. But Zalak just laughed and reminded Lucia that judging by her outfit, she was heading to training, and that the young master was working hard for the duel too. They'd push each other well, and for Zalak, that's hope for a bright future for their house. That's why Lucia's heart was breaking. Still, this pathetic duel was set up with a result already decided, just so Ian could boost his status, using the young lady's pure heart. If a miracle happens and she wins, he gets the glory. If she loses, who'll blame him? And suddenly, Zalak, without a trace of shame, asked for help. How many people had he lied to, trampled, and used, just to say that now? How low had he sunk into his rotten little schemes? To get to his current position, he stepped on anyone who crossed him. And this monster did it all for his damn selfish gain. He hurts people without a second thought, just to keep things easy for himself. Lady Lucia said goodbye to the captain and thanked him for his time. But the captain wasn't ready to wrap up the chat. He called it an admission that she was beneath him. For Lucia, the truth was obvious without a word spoken. It was Captain First Order Ian Rixes who outranked her. Zalak lashed out, accusing the girl of not knowing her place. He told her all sorts of awful things. People like her only know fear, he said, and fear's the only medicine for fools like her. He figured Lady Lucia could use a bitter dose of it too. The girl was too scared to say a word. She didn't even realize Ian was stepping up. He snapped at Zalak to back off the lady. Now, the villain found the morning events amusing and told the commander to calm down. He called their meeting with the lady a coincidence and said the commander didn't get the whole picture. As a knight, he couldn't just walk past a fragile girl hiding from the rain. Aeon asked the lady if what the second commander said was true, and if he did anything threatening to her, he'll make Zalak answer for it. The girl already knew Zalak and Aeon had a tense relationship, but even with that in mind, Aeon wouldn't act so emotionally. The teacher probably knows about him more than the young lady does. That's why we can't let that man take the initiative. We can't think of this dawn meeting as a coincidence. The Duke only recently issued a decree improving the bastard's status. And despite that, Zalak was radiating clear bloodlust. It looks like all this is a well-thought-out plan. The girl lied and told Aeon that everything Zalak said was true. Zalak realized she was trying to keep the situation under control. That was her, the same bastard he knew. Now she looked like a younger version of Lord Estio, the one the Duke admires so much. Jack asked the commander for permission to leave, saying the misunderstanding was resolved. The commander rushed to formally apologize to Jack for today's roughness. Jack replied, it was perfectly natural, since it was his first time taking on a female student. And Jack bowed out with hope of seeing him on the duel day. Ayan rushed to Lucia to check if she was okay. After calming the commander down, she said Jack didn't hurt her. But Ayan couldn't believe it, and wondered what had happened between them. Jack had always stayed calm no matter the challenge. But today, Ayan saw him lose it. The commander remembered how years ago, Jack staged an accident during a duel. And as a result, his closest ally was left paralyzed. He was so angry at Jack that he wasn't about to let him off the hook now. Yeah, it happened that day. And back then, he showed how weak he was. This duel might be the chance to break him completely. The big duel day had finally arrived. Lucia and Vance were in the hall, along with their sword instructors, Lady Lucia Rodbell and Commander Ayan Rixes, head of the Imperial Order's first magical knights, Vancis Rodbell and Galak Malid, the unit's second-in-command and swordmaster. Duke Rodbell, the family patriarch, was definitely here to witness this big day at the palace. And Miracle Rodbell, the family's younger daughter, showed up to watch the duel too. Vancis didn't want to let his father down during this crucial moment, but the pressure was even higher from his younger sister, who believed he'd win. Miracle found out he was fighting and begged her dad for permission to be here. Yet the only person standing with Lucia was Ayan alone. He told her to prove to everyone who she really was and who she wanted to become. Before the duel started, Ligrin took charge of explaining the rules. As announced, both fighters would be protected by magic to prevent injuries. The pendants were charms. No need to worry about getting hurt. The young master would win if his blade tip touched the girl's chest or neck. But Lady Lucia only needed to touch any part of her opponent to win. The opponents were given weapons specially prepared by the commanders for them. Vancis told Lucia to double-check her weapon, so she couldn't blame the sword later. Besides, she had a spear, which wasn't allowed for someone who trained in swordplay. But the call on whether it was allowed wasn't Vancis to make. It was up to the Rodbell family head. Ego Rodbell said the girl hadn't broken any rules, so they could keep going. Objections about her weapon choice and whether it was fair wouldn't be accepted. The only thing they had to keep in mind was the Rodbell family's honor, and they couldn't let it be tarnished in this fight. When the duel started, Vancis figured Lucia was going to push through to the end. It was funny. The kid wasn't even mad, he was laughing. Before it was too late, he told her to ask her dad for forgiveness, and maybe he'd show mercy. Aiden was right. Vancis had zero experience battling a spear. And the proof was, he was already in Lucia's reach. This was the heroine's only shot at learning how to fight, period. Lucia had her sights set on her opponent and was certain she'd win. Vancis couldn't believe that Lucia Rodbell had just about speared him. If only it hadn't been for a hair's breadth. If he'd hesitated even a second, the duel would have already been over. To the kid, it made no sense. None of it made any sense. It was impossible. In his mind, Lucia was born to get on people's nerves. What kind of opinion of him did she have to even dare aim her spear at him, instead of sensibly running away? Vancis was spouting nonsense with a deadpan face. But this wasn't some game of tag at all. Plus his defense was so obvious, the girl just made a quick lunge. But apparently, her move really shocked the great swordsman. A prideful guy like Vancis, when it came to martial arts, humiliation made him lose his head completely. Forcing him to follow Lucia's rhythm was the first step in her strategy. Everything was going according to plan, and each move laid the foundation for Lucia's victory. Watching their duel, Mirakel thought they were both incredible, especially Lucia fighting on equal footing with her brother. The young heroine was doing way better than expected, handling her weapon flawlessly. Even though it was just a well-thought-out plan, using it in real combat was impressive. Aiden hadn't forgotten Lady had an ace up her sleeve, but if the fight dragged on, Vancis would win. Teacher Vansa noticed the student's initial recklessness, and Luchoi's skill caught him off guard. It didn't last long, because no matter how hard the bugs stress his brain, for the young master who's already adapted to the situation, her impulsive attacks mean nothing. Vansa hadn't planned to fight her seriously, and he even embarrassed himself in front of his father. Now, after shattering her spear, he hoped Luchoi would finally realize she had no chance to beat him. The girl could count herself lucky just to have aimed her spear at her brother, much less struck him. That would be a miracle. But the heir had had enough games. He meant to scare her now. Vansa was sure the girl didn't feel pain from her magic, but he'd still go for her neck and chest. The mental pressure would hurt her far more than any physical pain. So the young master made Luchoi apologize to her father. That was the only mercy she'd get. The heroine regretted her past. She felt ashamed of her own foolishness. Attention, affection, or even a little warmth. She craved it, begged for it. She'd spent all her time cursing. For Luchoi, this duel wasn't over. Nothing was more pathetic than thanking him for mercy. In this situation, the girl was doomed to lose. Her weapon couldn't even reach him anymore. Even if she could, she'd lose the advantage, and Vancis already knew that. But that's why the chance to overcome her fears and push past her limits was lurking there. The moment Vancis believed in his victory, Lucia was determined to play her trump card. Thrusting her spear at the opponent, bold Lady Lucia declared this duel was hers. But if she'd acted the way she used to, Vancis would never have fallen for it. Lucia trained constantly, her hands covered in scratches. She pushed so far, did everything possible to win, and she won that duel. Everyone was thrilled by the battle's outcome. Even Miracle Rodbell. Lucia demanded the Lord announce the duel's verdict. She needed a clear answer, and fast, because time was against her. Even little Miracule waited for her father's honest answer. His Highness cherished his little daughter and would maintain his perfect father image. Interrupting their conversation, Zelak Malid, commander of the 2nd Magical Knight Division, burst in. Since the decision hadn't been made yet, he asked to speak on the duel. Everyone was baffled about what Zelak had in mind. They all waited to hear what he wanted to say. To throw a wrench in the duel's outcome, Zelak pointed at the broken spear. Once the spear was damaged, it couldn't land a clean strike, and the rulebook he knew by heart said as much. But Aiden cut in. He wasn't about to let Zelak ruin everything. Desperate moves to twist the truth, Vancis lost his sword at the end, just a show to give the Duke an excuse to rewrite the outcome. Despite everything, His Grace announced the verdict everyone was waiting on. He started with a man who'd been loyal to House Rodbell for years, Zelak Malid, commander of the 2nd Magical Knights, arrogant and ruthless by nature. But the Duke valued his cold determination. He gets what he wants, no matter the cost. That's why he trained Vancis. Zelak's the textbook example of a cold-blooded leader. But maybe he made a mistake. Vancis lost control, got out of hand, undisciplined. Zelak's hopes went up in smoke. The Duke announced the verdict. Lucia Rodbell was the winner. Anyone who dares question him or challenge House Rodbell will be executed. Lady Lucia was happy not just about the victory, but also the Duke's fair decision. From this moment on, His Grace appointed Ina Rixus as Lucia Rodbell's mentor. The training wasn't in vain, and the fact that she faced everything without fear and kept moving toward her goal paid off. The Duke, holding his young daughter Miracle's hand tightly, exited the hall. A full week had passed since the duel, and changes happened during that time. The servants' treatment of Lucia changed significantly. Now, she wasn't just an illegitimate child they used to ignore. It was pretty funny for Lucia to know the real reason the Duke kept her in the palace. The current situation pleased not just Lady Lucia, but also her loyal assistant Marin. But the biggest change was that Vancis stopped messing with her. Even though Vancis kept quiet, inside he was tearing himself apart, still haunted by his loss. Lady Lucia didn't really want to focus on it. After all, once a cruel person tried to get rid of her, and now it was her turn to do the same. Lady Lucia's training continued, now shifting to core disciplines. Also, on Ayena's request, her living conditions got a major upgrade. The Duke called in Aiden and asked him to handle a huge urgent matter. The commander was freaking out because His Majesty never gave him non-division assignments. This is about firing Sir Jalak Malid, the 2nd Division's commander. Malid got the boot at the Duke's request because he didn't train Vansa right. He just wasted Vancis's potential. The Duke even already picked a new candidate for the 2nd Division commander. Now Aiden was worried he could be replaced just as easily. Aiden told the Duke that losing the 2nd in command would damage the division's morale. His Highness handed Aiden a notebook and said not to stress. Back then, Lucia's kid fixed their problem. Now, when Malid found out about his dismissal, he was upset and didn't get how it happened. He thought all his hard work went to waste because of some kid's games, and Aiden personally nailed him for it, blaming Malid for everything. Malid went nuts and attacked him. Aiden stood his ground, taking the heat without flinching. He had the inner strength and guts for it.